Welcome to Timeless. It's great, as always, to be with you. I'm Julie Hartman. We have Sean McConnell in the producer's dungeon. Hello, Sean, and welcome.
Not a dungeon.
Oh, it's a dungeon. I live in a professional environment of all surrounded by men.
It's a man cave.
It is a man cave. By the way, I've talked about this on Dennis and Julie, but I'll just say it's very nice working with men most of the time. I've worked with women. And I'm a woman, in case you didn't know. I'm pro-woman. But working with guys, it's very chill. It's very fun. There's always food around.
It's smelly.
Yeah, well, that it definitely is. That's why I stay in this room where we're filming, and I don't go in that room. But I can wave at you, as everybody can. It's great to be with you, Sean. And by the way, you guys, I have a bit of an announcement to make. I know my parents are listening, and I just want to say I'm not getting married. I'm not pregnant. That's not the announcement. But there is an announcement. Drum roll. Bam. I'm going live on YouTube. We are taking this show, Timeless with Julie Hartman, and we are making it live. I'm not going to tell you the exact date or time yet. You know, you got to leave a little mystery for the people, leave them wanting more. But I promise you more details will be forthcoming. But we are deciding to really do this show live. And the reason why I want to do that is I just want to make my life harder, honestly. Just looking for all these different ways to challenge myself. And why not? Why not make everything more difficult? No, honestly, that's a part of that. I definitely want to challenge myself. But the main reason is that I love audience interaction. One of my favorite parts of this job is when I publicize my email, julie@julie-hartman.com, and I get emails from people, and I love writing back and fielding questions and getting into conversations with some of my viewers. And I thought this would be a really good opportunity going live and having that on the air. So what I will be able to do is read your comments, talk in real time as you react to things, and not to give away too much about the components of this live show, but we're going to have a call-in number. So you are going to be able to call in, talk with me live, talk with Sean live, if you so choose.
Am I having a bad hair day? What is this over here? This is...
You know what? I'm so used to it. I don't even say anything.
You're used to it. I'm not, though, and I'm going to be on camera. I don't know if I like this.
Maybe we get you some hats in the studio to always wear.
Look away. I'm hideous.
Do you color your hair, by the way?
No, I'm naturally fluorescent. So you will
amazing.
have a phone line. You will also, people will be able to, you'll be able to see the YouTube chat, the live chat. So this should be interesting. We're just inviting trollism.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So there's a part of me that worries about that maybe I'm just fielding crazy people to call in, but hey. It'll keep it more interesting.
I can't wait. Because
I can't wait
I am
either.
naturally an ogre, and I feed on trolls.
You do remind me a little bit of the ogre emoji.
Thanks.
Do you know that one?
No.
Yeah, you have a Samsung.
Why? Is it?
Do they have emojis thing? On Samsung?
Of course.
Oh.
They're probably different.
Shows you what I know.
I don't know.
But please, everybody, look out for this announcement with this live show. As I said, I'll have way more details forthcoming, and I think that it will be really fun and definitely a challenge. Speaking of a challenge, I want to talk in today's episode about one of the biggest challenges our country is facing, and that is immigration. Now, 2 days ago, over the weekend, Congress actually did something. Now, doing something is different from doing something well.
Wait a second. They did what?
They did something.
I don't believe you.
They did.
I don't believe it.
But here's the thing. This is what I just said. Doing something is different than doing something well. They did something, but it wasn't exactly great. They passed an immigration bill. Did you know this, by the way? Or
Nope.
are you just learning it here? Okay, well.
No.
Good thing you're here.
No,
you're learning from me.
It's odd. People think, I am kind of in tune with the news during the week, but on the weekends, man, whew, don't ask me. I don't pay attention. I don't know. You asked me if I watched the Grammys. I did not watch the Grammys.
Really?
I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to know.
You know, I had it on in the background as I was making banana bread, and I remember one thing about it. literally only one thing. I happened to turn it on right when Jay-Z was accepting the Lifetime Achievement Award, and Blue Ivy, his daughter, was up on stage. And I have to tell you, she looked really elegant. Sometimes you have these.
I'm sure she's beautiful.
No, well, certainly. I mean, appearance-wise, she looked very elegant, but just like her posture, her disposition. I mean, how old is she? Like 12 years old? And she was just standing up there in front of the whole audience, millions of people watching, and she just had this very, I thought, like, regal.
She's probably used to it. She's been living in a fishbowl since she was born.
Yeah, but living in a fishbowl is very different than going on stage and getting that kind of attention. Yeah, she's been photographed, whenever she walks down the street, but that's a big deal to stand in front of a huge audience.
Used to it. She's got two great teachers. Don't bury the lead. Did you bring any banana bread in?
No, I ate it all. I literally ate it all last night. My dad came in. My dad came in from dinner. I was at my parents' house, and he said, something smells really good. And I said, yeah, I made banana bread. And he goes, can I have a slice? And I said, no, it's gone. It's literally all gone. It was gone.
Next time, make 2 loaves.
I think I made enough for 2 loaves.
Oh, no. Jeez.
I ate it all. That's the thing that people don't realize about me. I am a huge food addict. Like, I am constantly eating.
But you work out, and you have a high metabolism. True. So you're
That's
like Michael Phelps.
But, Blue Ivy, seriously, I thought about doing a Julie Noted about her. She was really striking. They should be very proud of her. The way that she handled, because sometimes you see these celebrity kids and they just like, they look so uninterested, or they look like spoiled brats, or they kind of like, they give off this aura of like, I'm better than you, or she was great. So if you didn't watch the Grammys, literally just look up Blue Ivy if you want to see something good. But
all right, so what did Congress do?
Yeah, let's get back to the real stuff. In addition to the Grammys on Sunday, Congress passed an immigration bill. Now, this has been kind of, talked about for many weeks and many months, and President Biden has been saying, like, I'll definitely close the border, but Congress has to do something about it. Like, that's the problem, right? That Congress has to act. No, he needs to actually tell federal border patrol agents to stop cutting razor wire on the border and actually enforcing existing laws. But they did pass a bill. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. And then I want to talk about how this is actually a much greater phenomenon in the Western world. We in the United States, we tend to think that whatever is happening to us is only happening to us. But over the course of the past few weeks and months, I have been collecting articles, many of which are right here on the set. I pulled them out of my nerdy files that I have in my apartment. I have all these files with different names, like gender/trans stuff, border crisis, crime crisis, elections. I have all these files. And over the past few years, every time there's a news story that I think is important, I'll cut it out and I will file it away in one of those files. And then when something really big happens, like Congress passes a $118 billion immigration package, I pull out my notes and I see kind of the whole context. And what's fascinating is that as much as immigration is a big deal here in the United States, this is a problem that is facing the Western world. That over the past few years especially, there has been a massive influx of borders coming to the United States, coming to European countries, and there are a lot of leaders, not just Donald Trump, who are really kind of defining themselves in their political careers as being opposed to this. So I want to talk about some of those people. We're going to be talking about Viktor Orban of Hungary, Giorgia Meloni of Italy, the name of the Netherlands guy who I should know by heart, but I don't. Thank God I have notes. Geert Wilders of the Netherlands. There are all of these kind of Trump-like, vehemently anti-immigration figures. And, believe it or not all of them are racist, xenophobic, white supremacists. This is actually something that is going on all around the world. People realizing that they cannot support massive amounts of migrants coming to their country illegally, even if they have sympathy for those migrants. So let me start, though, with this bill. Again, Congress did something, but Who knows if it was actually something good.
I still don't believe it.
I know. It really is amazing. So this is $118 billion of our taxpayer money. We ought to know what it's going towards. $60 billion is going towards Ukraine. Now that's, being divvied up in various ways. Some of it is going towards humanitarian aid to those who have suffered war atrocities. Some of them are going to training members of the Ukrainian army. Some of it is going to weapons. But $60 billion, which is about half of that bill, is going to Ukraine, okay? $14 billion is going to Israel. But a lot of that, too, I think about $3 billion of the $14 billion is going to humanitarian aid in Gaza. $10 billion is going towards humanitarian assistance in general. $5 billion is going to various countries in the Indo-Pacific, supporting those countries' humanitarian purposes, military, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of these things, I actually tried to read the bill, but reading a 325-page bill while you're making banana bread and watching Blue Ivy be really elegant, it's like kind of a doozy, to be honest. And they don't exactly make these things the most logical and concise. But $5 billion is getting parsed out to some countries in the Indo-Pacific, and then $20 billion is going to the southern border. So a lot of people are going, really? Only $20 billion of
Maybe
the 118?
Maybe it's the libertarian in me, but I feel like it should be flipped around. Like the majority of that bill should be going towards the border.
Well,
and
I don't know.
Immigration.
See, actually, if you were a true libertarian, I think you would be saying that what's going on right now at the southern border is good, because libertarians are pro just open borders.
But they're also anti-funding Ukraine.
True, that's true.
Okay, so
Right.
they want to fix it home first.
Well, they're anti-funding Ukraine, but I don't know if they would want to give a lot of money towards the kinds of things
Have
that
I
are
told
allegedly
you my theory?
Being allocated.
That
No, what's your theory?
Immigration isn't broken. Washington is, and they would rather not solve the problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Not that I don't know if that's my theory, but immigration is fine. It's thriving.
That it is. It's definitely
But they
thriving.
would rather have this issue to run on than solve it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's
right.
true. No,
Sorry.
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I was reading an interesting op-ed in the Wall Street Journal the other day. I regret that I can't tell you this person's name. I actually can picture his cartoon, because they do cartoons of the columnists, but he was saying that, a big campaign strategy he thinks of the Biden administration is to keep these indictments of Donald Trump coming on and on and on. And a lot of people have gone, why is the left, why is the Biden administration doing this? Because every single new indictment makes the American people have more of the impression that Donald Trump is being politically persecuted. And so people think, well, the Biden administration is just kicking themselves and harming themselves and giving the American voter more reason to vote for Trump by continuing these indictments. But this Wall Street Journal writer, whose name I can't remember, but whose cartoon I can see very well, he said, no, this is actually a part of the left strategy. They want the American people to think that there are indictments that are politically motivated against Donald Trump, because they want Trump to be the nominee. Because, this writer says, that's the only way that Biden can beat Trump. Biden desperately wants a Biden-Trump matchup 2.0, because if another person besides Trump runs on the Republican side, they know that person is going to defeat Joe Biden, because Joe Biden has absolutely nothing to offer the American people besides the fact that he's not Trump. So anyway, that's just to say, it sort of made me think about all of this differently, that a lot of the things that are going on, I mean, clearly it's a rule of politics that nothing happens by accident, but some of the things that you think are actually harming the party in power, like why would the Democratic Party allow so much, immigration? Why would they allow all of these indictments? It actually may be part of a greater strategy to bring them more votes and more popularity in a kind of perverse way. And certainly, to your point, Sean, this whole border debacle is a way for Democrats to go, well, Republicans can't get anything done. in the Republican-led House, They're the ones who are creating this border issue. Because they don't want to aid Ukraine. Or Republicans are these secessionist freak shows by having, the Texas border control override federal patrol agents. This is being made to happen, many think, not crazily, to paint the other side as bad. But that's just politics, right? There's really nothing clean about politics anymore.
Yeah, but it's the dirtiest game going,
right.
And we've reached a point in this country where, correct me if I'm wrong, we dumped tea into the Boston Harbor, right?
Because we did do that.
But we did it for a reason. We didn't want taxation without representation.
Yep.
And that's what we are living in right now. Do you feel represented? But you're paying taxes.
I feel a lot of things. I definitely don't feel represented.
This is not a left or right thing. This is the people working hard versus nothing getting done in Washington. And who was it? Monica Harris that you had on? This is not a left or right thing.
Totally.
You can polarize and fringe all you want, but the issue is Washington is broken and it needs to be fixed. They spend no matter who's in there. Nothing gets accomplished. And look how much money is being wasted on elections. This is crazy.
Oh my God, look at what I was talking about on Timeless the other day. I was profiling these crazy new laws in the state of California that passed on January 1st, 2024. And one of them is gender neutral toy sections.
Right.
And I went through, literally, they have been debating this bill for the past 3 years. It was introduced in 2021. And you can go online, you look at the timeline of these things. It's like introduced, sent to the governor, sent back to Congress, debated on, first oral arguments, second oral arguments, first round of debate, then goes back to and this has literally been going on for 3 years. And it's like, wow, the people who are representing us are spending our taxpayer money. We are funding their little carnival to debate about gender neutral toys.
I want receipts.
Well,
I want receipts.
But here's the thing.
It should be a national bill that we get something sent to us in the mail saying this money was spent on this money was spent on that. Like if our government were an individual, they would have ripped up their credit cards, cut them up, and told them to stay in their room.
No, it's absolutely true. But here's the thing.
I want receipts.
I want receipts too, but we have them. I get what you're saying.
Do we?
We do. Look, Candace says whenever you have to pay federal or state income tax, you need to get a receipt of where that's going. I know that's what you're saying, Sean, and I agree with you. But we know what's going on. We know they publish this information. The timeline of this whole gender neutral toy carnival is on the state legislature website of the state of California. Yeah, maybe it's not, an itemized receipt that's mailed to us, but it's not exactly hard for us to figure out what the government is doing. We know they're wasting our time. I can't hear you. Actually, I kind of like this.
I feel like
I kind of liked it when I couldn't hear
we're just hemorrhaging money everywhere for all these things.
True.
And they say they're going to clean it up. They never clean it up. And where is our tax money? I feel like we would have money to do things for people if we weren't hemorrhaging money in places we don't need to be.
Yep, you're right.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you more about what's going on here. You're going to love this. You're really going to feel like your money's going to a great place. So, when people hear $20 billion is going to aid the southern border, this is where background information in digging is so important because it sounds so great, like, phew, finally, this issue is being addressed. Well, let's look at actually what that $20 billion is going towards, okay? So here are some of the provisions. Hiring more immigration judge teams to process asylum seekers. Okay, whatever, that sounds fine. You can say if that's, some people go, we shouldn't be hiring more people. We need to be effectively controlling the southern border. We have enough, immigration judges on the payroll. Some think this is a positive development. I'll let you decide that. But another part of this is training people at the border, federal border agents. So let's look at what they are being trained to do. This is under the heading of training-related expenses. Racial and religious training. Responses to vulnerable populations. De-escalation strategies and methods. And ready for this one? Training border protection agents on, quote, the impact on that border security operations has on natural resources. So basically, there's like DEI, climate change, environment training that is being allocated to go on at our southern border. They're also saying that there's going to be more money to be allocated to build more facilities. There are also some of these kind of more procedural powers that are granted in this immigration bill. For instance, the Secretary of Homeland Security can declare an emergency at the southern border if there are more than 4,000 migrants a day for 7 consecutive days. Also, apparently the Secretary of Homeland Security now has the power to remove or deny entry to any migrant that is within 100 miles of the border and has crossed into the country within 14 days of the alleged apprehension. But here's the thing, all of this is just words. All of this is just jargon, like it's really not that hard. It's actually quite simple. We need to continue building the border wall. Federal border protection agencies need to stop cutting razor wire on the border. What is so hard about this? And I get that there are things that are complicated. I have an immense amount of sympathy for people who are fleeing war-torn countries, who need asylum. I understand we need judges to process this. We need facilities to process this. But all of this jargon is really just getting around the glaring issue, which is there is no enforcement going on at the southern border. And $20 billion is not needed to rectify that issue. Doing your job is what is needed to rectify that issue. But as I said, this is not just something that is unique to the United States. I was talking with somebody in Germany who listens to Dennis and Julie. I actually met him when I went to Germany. Sean looks very skeptical. I like meeting listeners, as long as I vet that they're not weirdos.
No, I'm not skeptical.
Oh.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I was thinking, who else but you? You know what I mean? Has listeners in Germany that you meet up with.
Well, it's super cool. It's super cool. Wilhelm, shout out to Wilhelm. He's so great. And he was saying to me, we were talking about various things that are going on in Germany. And he said, when America sneezes, Europe catches a cold. Now, that's a pretty, I think, common saying, but I heard it for the first time with Wilhelm, so I'm going to credit him. And essentially, as a result of our feelings about immigration, a lot of European countries have adopted similarly liberal, quote unquote, humanitarian policies to allow a lot of immigrants too. So let's look at just some numbers here. This is pretty staggering. So let's first focus on the United States. This is according to data compiled by U.S. Border Patrol and then summarized in a fantastic article by Jason Riley. So in the year 2000, when President Bill Clinton was in office, Border Patrol apprehensions peaked at 1.7 million people. And then after 9/11, in about a decade and a half after 2001, border apprehensions went way, way, way down. Those of you who are watching are looking at a chart here. In 2011...
In the year 2000.
Oh my God.
You don't watch Conan? In the year 2000. Okay.
No, I don't know that reference.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a bit that he and Andy used to do. It was hilarious.
Really?
Yeah, and they would dim the lights and hold a flashlight to their face. In the year 2000. Oh,
I gotta go watch them.
Jeez.
They're funny. Seem like nice people. So in the year 2011...
In the year 2011.
Should I go live? Should I not go live?
Oh, yes.
Maybe we bring it back to the old time.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. Please carry on.
No, it's fine. Let's look. 2011, okay? 330,000 border apprehensions. That's amazing. In a decade, it went down 80% from 2000, okay? In 2017, during Trump's first year in office, that horrible bigot Trump, right? Border apprehensions fell to 300,000. Now, interestingly, in 2019, we can see right here, they went up to about 800,000 while Trump was in office. So Trump, bears some responsibility for not keeping it at a low number. But then we see that once President Joe Biden took office, it skyrocketed. In the fiscal year 2022, border apprehensions reached 2.3 million people. That is insane. Insane. And then it continued in the fiscal year 2023. It went to 2.4 million people. The Department of Homeland Security says that over the past 3 years, there have been over 7 million illegal immigrants coming into the United States. So that's America. let's fly over the pond and look at Europe. I'm looking at Frontex data. Frontex is the European Union's border agency. For those of you who don't know what the European Union is, don't worry. I didn't either until I started this job. Didn't learn about it in college. I vaguely had heard of it, okay? I vaguely knew it was some entity. Sean's looking like... I really didn't... I'd never really heard of it in college.
The EU?
Yeah. We never really talked about it. Yes.
Really, Harvard?
Well, I'm telling you, if you go up to a lot of people who are in college or recent graduates and you say, what's the European Union? What is NATO? What is NAFTA? What is OPEC? I don't think a lot of them could answer you. I had vaguely heard of it. I thought it maybe was like a economic group, and it is, but it's also a political group. So for those of you who are watching who are in college, don't worry, I understand you. The European Union is a conglomeration of 27 countries. Yes, they are together. They're knit economically, hence the euro. They have a common currency. But the main thing is that they are a political entity as well, which has a headquarters in Brussels, and essentially they sort of make decisions economically and politically as a group. That was the whole Brexit thing. The Great Britain was once a part of the European Union, but they didn't like that a conglomeration of countries were making decisions for them, with them, many say, but really for them, about things like immigration and fiscal policies. So they voted to exit the European Union. So anyway, looking at Frontex, which is the EU's border agency. Now, I can promise you a lot of people definitely don't know what Frontex is. You didn't know what Frontex is.
Balm. If
You're
your
right.
lips are chapped, you get a little Frontex.
Pretty true, actually. Well, Frontex says, and they reported this in the last week of January of 2024, that the number of, quote, irregular border crossings in the entirety of 2023 went up to about 380,000. Now, that may sound like nothing compared to what we're facing, and it is nothing compared to what we're facing, but we always have to compare it to other data. That's nearly a 20% increase from what it was in 2022. So there's this trend of more and more people coming to Western nations, United States and Europe. And what's cool about Frontex here, you can just go on and look it up. They have these different flashpoints of where immigration is the highest. So right here, we're seeing the central Mediterranean, because obviously there's a big crossing in Algeria. People go to Algeria, take boats, and then go to Italy because it's the shortest distance from the continent of Africa to the continent of Europe. And we see here that just at that point alone, in the year 2023, there were 157,000 illegal immigrants coming in, and they break it down by country: Guinea, Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, Bangladesh. They have other points. You're not seeing it on this chart, but again, if you go on the website, you can look at the Eastern Mediterranean flashpoint. That's basically people coming from the Middle East through Turkey into Greece and then dispersing throughout the rest of Europe. And they have there that most of the people that are coming through that flashpoint, if you will, are from Syria. Actually, in the year 2023, about 100,000 of the 380,000 illegal immigrants coming into the European Union were from Syria. Makes sense, right? Syria is in the middle of a civil war. Not a good situation going on there. Many from Afghanistan as well. They also have a Palestine category, which is ever growing. You get the point. But what we have seen is that over the past few decades, the amount of immigrants coming into Europe has really changed the demographics of a lot of European countries and cities. Let's look at France. 25% of the French population aged 0 to 4 years old is foreign born. It's amazing. Imagine if a quarter of the U.S. population aged 0 to 4 was foreign born. That is not something that is insignificant. 17% of those aged 18 to 24 in France are foreign born. And also 18% of those aged 40 to 44 are of a non-French origin. Most actually are from North African origin. This is according to INSEE, INSEE, another great database on all of this immigration. According to George Soros's, oh God, George Soros. I feel like whenever I say his name, I should get a boo. Audio effect coming from the dungeon. George,
Yes.
we need to get that in time for the live show. We should have that for just some people. Whenever we say their names,
Or I could just say,
there's a chorus.
boo.
Or we just hear it from Sean.
Shame. Shame. Did you not watch Game of Thrones?
No. Here's the thing, I read books.
Shame.
Okay, we have a list for me.
Shame.
Conan and Andy,
Yes.
Game of Thrones.
Yes.
You know, I was guest hosting for Dennis once and he made a Monty Python drop.
Yeah.
Remember, we are all individuals. We're all individuals. Wasn't that it?
Yes,
from Monty Python?
we are all individuals.
I didn't know what that was.
From the life of Brian. But that's before your time. That's okay. I think Conan was on while you were alive, and Game of Thrones definitely. That's okay. Banana bread, statistics, you go on, girl.
Makes you sound so terrible.
No, that's why we need you, Julie. Who else is going to look
I'm
this
doing
stuff
the work,
up?
so you don't have to.
Yeah, please.
George Soros' Open Society Foundation, which, by the way, is a nonprofit which gives financial support to people who immigrate. According to this Open Society Foundation, in 2011, they said that Marseille, which Sean has pronounced Marseille. I said it on a show once, and he goes, "It's Marseille. It's Marseille."
No, I got it confused with Versailles.
Right,
And I wanted to say
right.
Marseille. But
Right.
it is Marseille.
It's Marseille.
Yeah.
In Marseille, this is in 2011. That's the second largest city in France. 30 to 40% of that population of that one city alone was Muslim. Now, many are estimating that it's between 60 and 70% of the population of Marseille over a decade later. If we look at Melilla,
Melilla?
Spain. You want to correct me?
Manila?
Melilla,
Matilda,
Melilla,
the gorilla.
Spain.
All right.
50% of the population of that city is Muslim. In Germany, the entire population of the country is around 83 million people. 22 million of those 83 million, a quarter of the German population, are from another country or have parents who are born outside of Germany. And so we see that a lot has already been done, with regard to the demographics of European populations because of immigration, but this isn't even taking into consideration the birth rate. In the European Union, the average woman is having about 1.4 children on average. By the way, those numbers always make me laugh. Like one child and 0.4 of a child on average, a European Union woman is having. That compares to 3.5 children that the average Muslim immigrant woman in the European Union is having. So accordingly, by 2050, it is estimated that a third of the European population is going to be Muslim. Okay?
You ready for this, Julie?
Yes.
Ciudad de Melilla.
I said Melilla.
Ciudad de Melilla.
Melilla.
Ciudad de Melilla.
You know what? I can't. This is why I didn't say it in that way. I know I can't say it beautifully. I know it is going to sound like a white girl who took 5 years of Spanish and really retained very little of it. So I just stick to my white girl dialect, and that's why I'm saying Melilla.
Ciudad de Melilla.
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 It sounds like Malia.
No, we could try for the
Why
next
don't-
hour, and we will never say it right.
We would never say it. That's why I stick to my white girl dialect. I know I can't say it correctly. But that's amazing. I mean, these are really staggering demographic characteristics. In the European Union, I said that this anecdote that, when America sneezes, Europe catches a cold. Yes, of course, that's partially true. But also, with regard to the European Union, there have been a lot of policies in place predating the whole immigration craze in America, which made this sort of more common. For instance, the whole essence of the European Union is that member states or citizens of member states can move about in the Union without a passport. This is actually a law that was passed in 1995. They abolished the EU's internal borders and enabled people to move through the bloc without passports. So obviously that makes it a lot easier for people who are both lawful citizens and illegal immigrants to just move about, because there are fewer borders that you are going to be crossing with, kind of lawful apprehensions. Okay, so that's obviously one part of it. Another part of it is that after World War II, Europe was utterly decimated, Western Europe especially. And because Eastern Europe, was really under the control of the communists, and Western Europe was economically in very bad shape. So actually, a lot of people welcomed immigration because they needed help. They needed labor to rebuild these societies. And so there were various economic organizations, the European Coal and Steel Community, founded in 1951, the European Economic Community, which is a precursor to the European Union. These entities were founded and welcomed immigrants coming in and welcomed free movement of workers. So it's not that immigration was all unwanted or all bad, but now it's getting to the point where many countries are going, wait a minute, this is just way too much. This is changing the culture of the country. And I know that's a very controversial thing to say, but as I'm going to talk about with regard to a lot of these leaders, this is what makes a lot of them popular, that they're talking about how the culture of the country is being changed and a lot of resources are being exhausted. And people are going, wait a minute, as Sean and I were talking about with this new border Ukraine bill, people are saying if we're paying taxpayer money, if we are lawful citizens, we should be the beneficiaries of these resources and of this money.
Oh, I want to be very clear, Julie. I want the border and immigration process cleaned up. I have no problem with immigration. I think the vast majority of immigrants to this country are people that buy into the idea of America.
Absolutely.
And I believe that immigrants will save the idea of America in the future. Because people that are born here take it for granted, don't give a rip, right? But people that are, the vast majority, I'm sure there are some criminals and people escaping whatever that aren't good for American society. But the vast majority of people coming here do believe in the American ideal. They do try to assimilate, and they are productive citizens. So I think we need to fix the people that are already over here, get them registered and all signed up, and we need to fix the border so that it's a process again rather than a free-for-all.
Would you give amnesty to all 7 million immigrants that came in the past 3 years?
My my theory on this is we should ask those 7 million that are already here illegally to go down to the border and stop people from coming over. And if they do that, we'll give them citizenship.
I look forward to seeing how that works out. This is why.
But in short, yes. If you've come over here and you've been working and you can prove you've been working, why not? That's the only way we're ever going to get ahead of this.
I know, but we need to also enforce our laws.
I understand that. But there's a net overflow that needs to be dealt with. And didn't we do amnesty already under Reagan?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So, and I believe it's Reagan's birthday today.
It is.
Yeah.
Holy moly. All conservatives should be wearing a party hat today.
My point is, with the allocation of money, is that we should be using that money to fix our problems here first.
Listen, here's the thing. This is the problem that's going on in Europe and the problem that's going on in the United States. There are not maybe there are some, but the vast majority of people are not fundamentally anti-immigrant. As Sean just said, most immigrants coming to the United States, I love them because they know how wonderful this country is. They are fleeing war-torn, poverty-stricken countries. They know how destitute, they were in destitute situations. They know what a shining jewel the United States of America is. And it's amazing because we have all these people who are citizens of the United States, people who I've been in classrooms with, who are the beneficiaries of this system. And they are the most anti-American people.
Right.
And they pose more of a problem to our country than most of the people who are coming in who really I agree with you there. But we have a very generous immigration system. We give 1 million, we give people 1 million individual citizenship every year. At a certain point, it just is too much. In fact, it's a very good segue into a video that I found, which I think demonstrates this perfectly.
Well, before you do that,
Sure.
Let me our buddy, Dennis Prager,
Yes.
says that things that work on the micro, which is compassion for immigration, which I think we all have, even though this issue has been politicized and demonized.
Yes.
Everyone has compassion on the micro, but it doesn't translate to the macro. Okay, carry on with your
Absolutely. No, that's a very important point.
Yeah.
That's a very, very important point. On a macro scale, we cannot take the world's immigrants. I mean, we don't have the resources, we don't have the bandwidth for it. And the phenomenally heartbreaking issue is that there are so many people who want to come here that it would literally be many times over of the population of our country. Please watch just a minute of this video, which shows this issue using gumballs, of all things. Let's take a look.
And in India, another 890 million people, desperately poor. China adds another 480 million people.
Every gumball is a million people.
Making less than $2 a day. And unfortunately, the rest of Asia has a heartbreaking 810 million people who the World Bank says make less than $2 a day. And finally, there's 105 million of Latin America's population that are desperately poor. All told, the World Bank says there are 3 billion people in the world. 3 billion people who are desperately poor, making less than $2 a day. That's 3,000 gumballs. And every year, we take 1 million and suggest that we've somehow made a humanitarian difference.
And by the way, this guy, it sounded like he was being snarky by saying, and we think we're making a humanitarian difference. It seems like his kind of next point would be, we need to take more. If you watch the entirety of that video, which I encourage you to do, what he's showing is that it is an insurmountable obstacle. That doesn't mean that we take no one, but we have a much greater issue than people just have this idea that if we just let all of these people in, we would solve the issue. We would just take all the people who need refuge. No, there are billions and billions and billions and billions of people who need refuge. And at a certain point, a line needs to be drawn. So what's kind of interesting about this whole situation, this crisis that America and the Western world in general is facing, is that there's at once this kind of global campaign to paint the West as a fundamentally defective, bigoted, xenophobic, systemically racist place. But then at the same time, we have all these people who want to come to our countries, and many governments, which are such as AMLO, the president of Mexico, who are encouraging people to go to the United States. Even China, the country I talk about probably the most on this show. It's a country that is not exactly loving the United States. They want many of their students to come here, and we allow that to happen. We are the country which gives the highest number of student visas to Chinese citizens. We give about 380,000 student visas to Chinese nationals alone. A lot of people are from non-Western countries whose governments, basically say how awful the West is. They want their people to come and, seek refuge and especially learn from us in the West. So it's just especially interesting that there's this kind of duality.
I have a buddy who lives in Atlanta, and his theory is all of these leftists that think this country is systemically racist should have to go down to the border and explain their theories to the immigrants trying to get in.
Absolutely. You know what? No, it's so true. And I tweeted this and people thought it was a funny joke. And I swear to God, I didn't mean it as a joke. I want to raise a GoFundMe for all of these people in the United States who hate America and think that it is a terrible place and who are praising Hamas. I want to send them on a trip. I'll pay for it with my money. GoFundMe, first class even, a one-way ticket to the countries that they think are better. I want to have them spend a year in these countries and go, or many years, leave them there. Go. You go see for yourself. But yes, it's so true. It's an amazing kind of cultural, geopolitical double standard that no one seems to recognize, the kind of cognitive dissonance. And by the way, what's so interesting too is that, these horrible Western countries are allowing all of these non-Western, non-European, non-white immigrants to come to their countries. But then when the roles are reversed, we cannot so freely immigrate ourselves to non-Western countries. And if we did, we would not be able to retain our religion and our culture in the way that non-Western people, when they come here, are able to do. I have a dear friend whose parents were Muslim immigrants, and they lived in the Bronx in New York. And one of the things that he said to me was, it is so amazing about America. He was telling me that his parents were able to come here and not lose a lick of their culture. You know, they were able to go to mosque every day. They were able to exist in a Bengali Muslim community in the Bronx. No one was forcing them to give that up. We couldn't exactly go to a lot of countries and enjoy the same privileges. You know, imagine going to Shia fundamentalist Iran and saying, hey, I know you guys mandate that women wear hijabs, and I know that you mandate that people are Muslim, but I would like to live here and retain my Western Christian free-flowing hair culture. They would not allow that for a moment. But, you know, that never gets acknowledged, right? Because Westerners are always the problem. So this is what then transitions me to the main part here of this episode, which is to give examples of how the reaction against this is not just particular to the United States. There are a lot of Trump-like figures popping up all over the world. And there seems to be sort of this infatuation with nationalism and with populism and with you know, really trying to put one's own country first and retain the demographics and the culture and the resources of that country. And that's something that all of us ought to really look at, especially if you think it is a bad development. You need to go, okay, well, why is this cropping up? Why are so many people becoming, you know, increasingly nationalist, and realize that there has been a very large problem, that is of unmitigated immigration, that has in part contributed to this. You know, we've even seen this here in the United States. Yes, Trump is the poster child for America First nationalism, you know, anti-immigration, but we've even seen, and by the way, I actually shouldn't say that he's anti-immigration. That's actually a way of speaking that the left has painted him and conservatives as, and it's sad that we have heard it so much that we even unwittingly fall into it. Trump and conservatives are not anti-immigration. They are pro-immigration, but they are pro-legal immigration. So I should say anti-illegal immigration when I'm describing him. But we've even seen President Joe Biden change on this. He campaigned on the fact that the border wall doesn't work. He famously said, not another foot. And then his administration started to recommence the building of that wall. We saw people like Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, or the former mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, who once said that we are sanctuary cities. We welcome all kinds of people. They've gone back on their promises and gone back on their rhetoric. Eric Adams said that illegal immigration is destroying the city of New York. So we're seeing this movement globally, but we're also even seeing it kind of internally among the people who were once anti-immigration restrictions. So we know about Trump. Let's move over to the Netherlands for a minute. And this has all kind of been happening over the past few months. It's really interesting to see. There is a star who has emerged in the Netherlands. His name is Geert Wilders. He is actually Parliament's longest serving member, and some are even saying that he might be the prime minister of the Netherlands one day. They have a weird system in those countries. They need, you know, coalitions of parties in parliament, and oftentimes it takes many months, even years, to get elect a prime minister, form these coalitions. But there's a possibility that he would be the prime minister. He is a part of the Party for Freedom, which in the most recent elections in the Netherlands, that party won 37 out of 150 seats in the Dutch House, which is actually a lot. Also considering that they beat 14 other parties and they expanded their representation by about 50%. And so what does this party stand for? Well, it's going to sound kind of familiar to you. They want to withdraw from the European Union, like Britain, because they don't like the idea of, you know, these figureheads in Brussels voting and making decisions on their country's autonomy and borders and immigration statuses and economic policies. So they want to withdraw from the EU. They also are a party which has said that they believe that the Netherlands are wasting money on, quote, liberal expenditure projects, such as climate change initiatives. They are a very pro-law and order party, and also they have historically taken the position that they would like to end or severely restrict Dutch military aid to Ukraine. Sound familiar? Sounds an awful lot like the Republican Party in the United States. There's kind of a global movement with all of this. Now, this particular individual, Geert Wilders, who is the head of the PVV, he has been under fire because about a decade ago, he said, I think unkindly, quote, of Muslims in the Netherlands, he said, quote, "You have to give up that stupid fascist book." So he's been criticized for saying that, but he has since changed his tune, and he's come back from saying that. And essentially what he was saying is that he is upset not at individual Muslims, but he is upset of the way that there has been just this unmitigated illegal immigration, primarily from Muslim countries. And so here is another quote that he has. He said, "There's an overrepresentation of non-indigenous people committing crimes, people from Morocco, Somalia, etc." And he said of his supporters, they are labeled, quote, "They are labeled racist by the left. Well, I stand up for them. I fight for them. They aren't racist. They're fed up." So he is trying to pass certain laws which essentially suspend the amount of resources that can be allocated to such immigrants, housing, medical, healthcare services, because he believes that ought to go to the Dutch population. And he actually proposed a measure which would be a temporary measure to give 0 people asylum while this immigration situation is being rectified. Now, whether you agree or disagree with him or like some parts of him and don't like other parts of him, that's beside the point. The point is to show you that this is a global theme, that these things are being talked about and considered and indeed implemented in a lot of different countries. In fact, in my I'm losing the name of the word, folders. In my folders on various issues, I have this article, which was in the Wall Street Journal at the end of December. Europe tightens its immigration rules. This is not just happening in the Netherlands. The European Union actually recently voted on a law which would restrict asylum seekers. They voted on this at the end of 2023. France has actually been at the front of the movement of changing their immigration laws. Read this, and then you tell me if you think what's going on in the United States is so draconian. Quote, "The French Parliament supported a bill that bolsters the government's power to deport foreigners and limits access to welfare and citizenship to dissuade asylum seekers from coming. They voted to expel foreign residents who reject the values of the French Republic. It tightens access to children and housing benefits for foreign residents living legally in France and raises the French language requirement for residency permits. Children born," and this is the critical part, "children born in France to foreign parents will no longer be automatically granted citizenship." So we think Republican, measures in the United States to build a border wall is so bad. This is pretty strict. And again, I'm not making a value judgment on it. I'm showing you this is becoming a really, really big issue. This article also profiles that in Britain, quote, "Preliminary legislation has been passed aimed at permitting the deportation of failed asylum seekers to Rwanda." And in Germany, like in the Netherlands, the anti-illegal immigration right-wing party called the Alternative for Germany Party is currently second in the polls. So, in addition to those laws, in addition to the potential new prime minister of the Netherlands being this very, very, very strict on immigration individual, let's fly from the Netherlands down south and many, many, many thousands of miles over to Argentina. Javier Milei, the werewolf-looking Trump guy who everyone is obsessed with. He, wants to abolish the central bank. He has criticized the World Economic Forum, these kind of elite global entities like the International Monetary Fund. He opposes trade unions, yada, yada, yada. But really, he also has very similar measures on immigration. He wants to decrease the resources, education, and healthcare that are allocated to any foreigners. He wants to actually deny entry to any foreigner seeking illegally or not citizenship status if they have a criminal record. And he is changing policies to try to make illegal immigration less common by having residence permits being linked to a job. So the company has to pay and initiate the process of the person seeking a residence permit. So it kind of puts the onus on the private sector. So just again, another interesting example of how common this is. Let's go. Probably should have done the geography a little better. Let's fly from Argentina back over to Europe and look at Hungary. Hungary's prime minister is a man named Viktor Orban, who has positioned himself as the anti-woke crusader of the European Union. He calls Hungary, quote, a David-sized nation standing against a woke Goliath. He's very anti, all this kind of LGBTQ cultural give puberty blockers to minor stuff. None of that happens in Hungary. He's also anti-giving aid to Ukraine. Hungary is a part of the European Union. Viktor Orban recently capitulated to a vote in the European Union in which they all voted to give more money to Ukraine, even though he personally stands against that. He said that actually he wants to, quote, take over Brussels and make it less woke. But also with immigration, he's pretty hardlined. He recently tweeted of the European Union allowing so many immigrants in. He said, quote, we don't want mini Gazas in Budapest. I know, pretty stringent, right? Sean's eyes just widened. He also passed a law that actually the European Court of Justice, which is the European Union's tribunal, court ruled was illegal. And this law would have required immigrants seeking to move to Hungary to submit a pre-asylum application, not in Hungary, but at Hungarian embassies in Ukraine and in Serbia. And so essentially the European Court of Justice said, wait a minute, you can't just essentially paw these asylum seekers off in other countries, even if they are submitting their applications at your embassies. You have a responsibility, just as any other European Union country has, of processing those applications yourself. But you understand the direction that he is trying at least to take his country in. And then the final person we'll look at is Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, who I think is beautiful. I know, she's very pretty and her values are spectacular. She gave a speech about God, family, and country and how we have got to, embrace our Judeo-Christian principles and there's nothing to be ashamed about being a Judeo-Christian country. I'm like, go you, queen. Pop off, queen. That doesn't mean I agree with every policy she has or everything she says, but I think that she's a real fighter for traditional values. She said a similarly contentious thing as Prime Minister Viktor Orban said. Viktor Orban said, we don't want many Gazas in Budapest. Giorgia Meloni said, I will not allow Italy to become a refugee camp for Europe. She has similarly criticized the European Union welfare state, how liberal the European Union is as far as immigration, and she has proposed, against a lot of pushback, having severe quotas on immigrants. But just as the United States border-wise is on the front line of immigration because we share a border with Mexico and we have a lot of those migrants coming from Latin America, Italy is in a similar position. The Netherlands is way high up there. It's buffered by a lot of European states. But Italy, as we saw, is the primary location of where particularly and especially Northern African immigrants come and just sail, across from the port of Algeria to Italy. So this is a global movement, everybody, and it will be fascinating to see how it plays out. But, in an age where we're talking about a lot of reckonings, that's a word that we hear a lot, racial reckoning with our past. This is the main reckoning, I think, that Western European Judeo-Christian countries are having, and it is only going to amp up in the future. Right, Sean?
Yep. Before you go, Julie, can I just say that I lost a dear friend who passed away yesterday. He lives in Hawaii, and his name is Rolly B. And he finally succumbed to his injuries and his suffering. And He was a very faithful guy, and he will be missed. And I want you to rest in peace. Rolly B, I love you, brother.
Oh, I'm glad you said this too, because he worked here at Salem. So I think it's very nice that we're honoring him on the show. I regret that I was never able to meet him. But yes, let's dedicate this episode and all of the episodes this week to him. And from what I know about him, he loved this country.
And God.
And God.
Yep.
Thank you all very much for joining us. I hope to see you soon. And again, I will keep you updated on going live. I'm really excited about it. I hope that you are too. I'll see you soon.